Hello, everybody. My name is Garrick. This is Kiss Finance, and today an absolute bomb got dropped in the financial markets. So stick around. I want to explain to you what is going on because it is not hyperbolic. It is not overstating it that an absolute bomb just got dropped in the financial market today. So stick around. I'm going to tell you what is going on, why it's important. So I want to create this channel, Kiss Finance, to explain to people the general concept of what's going on in the markets. I've been following the markets really closely for the last year and a half or so, and I've been reading tons of stuff, listening to lots of podcasts, watching lots of YouTube videos. It is insane the amount of information that you can glean from YouTube these days. And so I wanted to add to that by creating this channel. There's a lot of channels out there that help people, but a lot of things will go over your head if you haven't really kind of made a foundation yet. And so my hope, since I'm not at all an expert, but I have a much better understanding than your average guy or gal, is to create videos that the average person can understand, even if they don't follow the market. I'm not going to assume you know anything. I'm going to explain everything that I know. I'm going to break things down very simply, and that's where I'm going to go with this. So I want to explain something to you and show you this bomb that just got dropped in the financial markets. So today, the 10-year and the 2-year yields just inverted. And what that means for anyone who doesn't know is that normally in a healthy economy, if you're going to lend someone money, if you're going to buy a bond, you have to pay that bond holder a certain percent of interest for them to lend you money. And in a healthy economy, normally, if you want to get a loan for longer, you want more money and you don't want to pay them back for 10 years versus 2 years, you have to pay a higher interest to keep that money for 10 years than you would if you're going to only get that money for 2 years. But when the yield curve inverts, that is a signal from the market that the market is forecasting that the next 2 years is going to be more unstable and is far riskier than the next or following 8 years. So they're going to require more money from you in 2 years than they would if they gave you money for 10 years. And if you just look up yield curve inversion today, today's 3/29, it's Tuesday, March 29th. And if you just look up yield curve inversion, it's just absolutely blowing up the internet. Every single financial market broadcast outlet, media outlet is talking about this because it's a huge, huge deal. This is the one thing that people look at in terms of recession, and I'm going to show you why. So this is from the St. Louis Fed economic data. And what this graph shows is that every time this blue line goes below zero, that is a 2 and 10-year yield inversion. So you can see here 10-year treasury constant maturity minus 2-year treasury constant maturity. And so today the 10-year treasury or the 2-year treasury was above the 10-year treasury. So if you take the 10-year treasury and subtract the 2-year, it's negative, and that's what this graph is showing. And if you go back, and this is just, I maxed out this graph, but it goes back even further. Actually, I think if I bring up this one I was reading earlier, over the last half century, the yield curve inversion has been a recession indicator. The phenomenon has a strong record of predicting a recession. Each of the last 8 recessions dating back to 1969 were preceded by the yield on the 10-year falling below the 2-year. So what this means is every single time since 1969 that we have had a recession, every single time it has been preceded by a 2 and 10-year yield inversion. And so what that means for us is that because this just inverted, there is if you go back to 1969, there is a 100% chance that within the next 12 to 24 months, we are going to have a recession. And if you look at the 1980 recession, it inverted in August 1978, and then these gray bars right here is considered the recession period. So it inverted in 1978, And then in February 1980, a year and a half later, we got a recession, came back up, inverted again in roughly September 1980. And then October 1981, about a year later, another recession. And then come back down here, it was kind of in the middle of a recession, so kind of same thing. But then if you go all the way, from what, 1982, everything was good, 1988, 6 years later, it inverted in December, very end of 1988. And then in July 1990, a year and a half later, we had a recession. Everything was peachy keen from 1991 all the way until 2001, so for 10 years. But after it inverted in January 2000, we had a recession 12, 13 months later. And this just continues over and over again, right? We were good for another 6 years. It inverted. And then, 2 years later, everybody knows what happened. The GFC, which is the Great Financial Crisis. If you start following financial channels, they'll reference the GFC. That's what they're talking about, the Great Financial Crisis. And then everything's been peachy keen all throughout here, right? And a lot of people actually don't know this. We actually had a small recession the yield inverted in 2019. Or not a lot of people, but it wasn't as, I guess, looked upon, or maybe I just didn't realize it because I wasn't following at the time. But, it inverted right before the coronavirus. And so even though no one had any idea that the coronavirus was going to happen, at least I didn't see a whole lot of things about it in the news. I've been following the news for years, not so much financial news, but, it happened again right before the coronavirus hit. This was a really small recession because the Fed came in, bailed everything out, and then everything pumped up again. But as you can see from this right here, it's been going down and down and down ever since, about March of last year. So just about a year ago, and it just inverted. So within the next 12 to probably 18 months, we're going to get a recession. And there is a 100% likelihood, if you take historical precedent as your guide, there is a 100% chance that we are going to have a recession within the next 12 to 18 months. And so that is why, a lot of people are looking at, economic data right now. Russia just threw an absolute wrench into the system. But back in December, we were at all-time highs. This is just the Dow. And if you don't know, the Dow is made up of the 30 largest companies in America. And so it's not, a lot of people say it's not a great, indicator of how the market's doing because it's only 30 companies and they're so massive. So how are like a lot of the smaller companies doing? It's hard because they don't have the same capital. So a lot of people, think this isn't the best example. They consider the NASDAQ or the S&P better examples, which are the other two really big indicators in the market. But everything was going down, 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 and now everything's come back up. And a lot of people are saying, oh, we're out of the woods, But as everything seems to be looking good, today is when the 2-year and the 10-year inverted. So if you hear anybody say that, oh, everything's good, just let them know that the 2 and the 10-year inverted. And again, going back to 1969, that is a 100% indicator that we were about to go through a recession. So hope that helps. I felt like I've been putting off doing this channel for a while. I've been really interested in finance for a while. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this or whatever. I don't really know as much as some people. But no matter what side of the aisle you fall on nowadays, I feel like everybody's frustrated. And I feel like for me, this will really help me kind of just channel that energy into something that's productive rather than just fuming all the time. And so that is what I'm going to do. I hope you like this video. If you guys have any questions, or if you have any other questions about this video, or if you have any questions about something that you would like me to talk about that's not this, as long as it's not like super complicated answer. If it is, you've probably been following the markets for a while. But if you have a general question about the markets, about why things are happening, about anything historical, I'd be more than happy to answer it. And if not, it would be a good challenge for me to look something up and do some research and learn something myself, and then I will share it with you. So I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions. And I forget if I said this at the beginning of the video, but KISS stands for Keep It Simple Stupid. It's a military, at least a Marine Corps acronym. I was in the Marine Corps, And it basically just means don't overcomplicate stuff. And I feel like the markets and finance stuff, it's not overly complicated. You just have to understand like what's going on. And so when anyone talks about, oh, the yield curve just inverted, some people be like, what the heck does that mean? But after I just broke it down, it's not that complicated. It just means that bond investors want a higher return on their money in the next 2 years than they do in the next 10, because they think the next 2 years is going to be rougher than the following 8, right? It's not that complicated. But if someone talks about it and they, want to sound all smart, they might, talk about this, that, and the other thing. And I think that a lot of these, issues and ideas can be broken down into very simple explanations. And so that's what I plan to do. Let me know if you have any questions. Talk to you later. Keep it simple, stupid.